The story you're about to enjoy is a factual tale, read to you from a fictional location. We believe.
Madam, the results of the survey are in. Do we care what our guests have to say?
Well, we stopped locking the doors behind them. What more do they want? What survey? We didn't take any survey.
It's given out by the village council, a Rotary Club thing. They ask all the townspeople to rate their experiences and opinions of local businesses.
Ooh, are we shut then?
No, but I must admit the numbers are fascinating. 52% of our guests report a feeling of dread whilst visiting the Midnight Library.
Only 52%. We can do better than that.
Yes, I don't think that's quite the objective we want to pursue. Not openly, anyway.
Oh, right. I get mixed up. Welcome back to the Midnight Library, my dear guests. We're so pleased to see so many of your familiar faces in the room tonight, and we bid a warm welcome to those of you who are new. I'm your light-hearted librarian and humble host, Miranda Merrick. Let me ask you, if you happen to be told that eating the berries of the Rowan tree would add a solid year to your life, that might sound enticing, yes? Reports that the berries have the power to reverse a bit of aging and put, as it were, a spring in one's step sounds of further good news, yes? Let me encourage you to lend a suspicious ear to such precarious promises, because although this tree, loaded with lore, does in fact grow these storied berries, and eating them may grant you extra time, you may not end up spending that time doing exactly as you wish, because eating the berries will definitely put a spring in your step as you sprint to the restroom to spend there an indefinite amount of time. A magical tree, indeed. Even if you're not a nature-bound soul or fascinated by the talk of trees and the myriad of plants that have strangely emerged and spread from the four corners of the earth, you may still like to see a rowan tree. Known as the goddess tree, the rowan is native to Scotland, but can be encouraged to grow in almost any country, provided it's given the right conditions. It can reach at its tallest 65 feet, although smaller versions of 39 feet are far more common. The rowan tree is, simply put, a natural work of art. A rich mix of graceful fern-like, almost tropical leaves and bright clusters of cream-colored aromatic blossoms that give way to a profusion of fiery red-orange berries that give the tree a look of a living watercolor painting. It appears as though it's earnestly trying to offer every eye that sees it something pleasing to behold. But what you cannot see is something the tree is infused with, and even this ingredient is forever invisible. The rowan tree is ripe with historical folklore, and the very manner in which the tree is said to have come into being is through no ordinary means of evolution or propagation. According to Greek mythology, we are told the story of glorious eagles that while engaged in a fierce airborne battle with demons who had stolen Zeus's heavenly chalice, dropped their feathers and spilled droplets of their blood upon the earth. From their blood grew the first rowan tree, and its leaves show in the shape of eagle feathers, and the garnet-colored berries are a living tribute to the droplets of their shed blood. Mr. Darling, would you kindly arrange for something dark and distracting for me to listen to after the guests have gone? Something comforting like Poe, or perhaps some foreboding forensics tales?
It's not always easy to be the one telling the story, is it, madam? Isn't it nice to have the entire Audible library at our fingertips?
I do confess that what I've come to love is having a favorite old book read to me. I find I discover things whilst listening that I've somehow missed before. Perhaps we should let our guests know how they can listen too, especially since we don't let them near our collection.
Certainly. As a Midnight Library guest, simply visit audible.com/TML, as in the Midnight Library, or text the letters TML to 500 500 to get started with a free trial. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection. But much more than this, Audible members are then apprised of a veritable cornucopia of knowledge, as the Audible Library gives you access to thousands of both new bestsellers and classic books, and all read by the finest narrators, as well as access to business and self-development titles, podcasts, A-list comedy, and world-class daily news digests like the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal. And there are even guided meditation programs.
Darling, tell me what you've been listening to.
And
And don't say Call of the Wild by Jack London again.
Madam, that is a stereotype, a cliché, and I do not appreciate your assumption.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have assumed. What are you listening to?
White Fang by Jack London.
Oh, my mistake.
Once again, visit audible.com/TML or text TML to 500 500 to start your free trial.
From the north, Norse mythology claims the first man was formed from an ash tree, and the first woman came from the Rowan tree, giving us the goddess tree nomenclature. The name Rowan is derived from the Norse word ron, meaning magic or spell. Entangled within this lore is also the word rune, meaning secret or mystery. And the sacred wood of the Rowan tree customarily provided the blocks for the ancient magical rune symbols to be carved upon, perhaps infusing them with their supernatural abilities. See how nicely it all works. It should come as no surprise that due to its rich history, the Rowan tree goes by many names, such as mountain ash, quicken tree, and witch tree. This may or may not be due to the fact that in the optimum environment, the tree can live for 200 years. Sensitive to the needs of both gods and man since time immemorial, legend holds that when the god Thor was being swept away to the underworld by a raging river, it was the Rowan tree that graciously bowed its strong branches low to the river to rescue Thor and selflessly saved his life, thereby changing the course of the god's life and all of history itself. In many places, even today, it is believed to be bad luck to cut down a rowan tree that is growing wild beside a home or in a field intended for crops. It is thought to be wiser and safer to leave the tree be, as it is said to provide protection for your home and to ensure an abundant harvest. Actually, cutting the branches with a blade at all should never be done. It's believed to be cruel and disrespectful to the magical tree. Instead, rowan branches must be broken by the strength of your hands alone, your touch creating a bond between you and the tree, ensuring the tree will grant you its power. And if the tree is found growing near a stone circle, the power it possesses is thought to be many times stronger. Those among you with a green thumb and a head full of determination to grow your own rowan tree will be glad to know that the odds are in your favor, because the trees are happily compliant to most soils and climates, as long as they're not of an extreme nature. The perfect time to plant your tree is after it has gone dormant in the late fall, which is coincidentally the best time to do almost everything. At least that's what we find is true here on the grounds of the Midnight Library. You may choose to intentionally plant your rowan tree next to your home to bless your dwelling with the luck and protection already stated. But another popular planting site for the tree is inside of graveyards. In fact, there's a long tradition of doing this, as the mystical tree is thought to watch over and protect the dead, as well as to drive out spirits, which seems to be a mixed motivation to me, but who am I to question a magic tree? I can freely tell you, dear guests, that all of the rowan trees here on our property were planted over the past several hundred years by my grandmothers on All Hallows Eve. They are all descendants of trees grown in Bakewell, England, and each of them has names. However, I'm under no obligation to explain to you the reason why. In Scottish lore, the treasured timber of the tree is never to serve in common or basic pedestrian uses, such as lumber for houses, carts, or barrels. That sort of mundane use is strictly for trees that are run-of-the-mill and lack any magical power. To the Scottish and Irish people, using rowan trees haphazardly could be seen as sacrilegious, since rowan trees were associated with Saint Bridget, the holy patron saint of protection, healing, and the arts of smithing, spinning, and weaving. So in this way, spokes, spindles, knitting needles, and spinning wheels that were made from rowan branches were thought to be strong protective items, and the railings, cloth, and garments made from these crafting tools were said to bless and protect their fortunate owners. The body of a rowan tree is unique in its appearance. Its bark is dark but also silvery, giving the tree a soft sheen. Depending on the variety of tree, when exposed, the cross-cut appearance of the core of the trunk and branches can be visually unusual, sometimes having an outer lighter-colored ring that surrounds a blood-red center, not dissimilar in appearance from that of a severed human limb, or so I've read. From these sacred lengths of timber, it is said that charmed and powerful objects could be fashioned, and sacred knowledge could be accessed. For instance, its fallen twigs were used in the divination of water and metals, while its slender branches were fixed over doorways, tied to cowtails, and sewn into the hems of bridal gowns, and into the coat linings of children and adults. Doing this would endow the dwelling, the animals, and people an unseen but supposedly real shield of protection from harm, and bestow good luck upon them. Speaking of which, if you desire to travel and explore new landscapes with luck and safety, a walking stick made from a rowan branch is just what you'll need. For those who stroll along with a cane of rowan can never become lost. However, if it is protection from dark forces that you seek, 2 slim twigs of rowan wood configured into a cross and bound together across the center with red thread will keep all manner of demons, evil spirits, and witches from harming you. That is, if you are inclined to believe in such things. But you must then also bear in mind that these beings too are thought to utilize the wood of the tree for their own supposedly nefarious deeds. Witches in particular are known for turning the branches into sturdy broom handles and powerful wands. The alternative name, witch tree, may in fact have something to do with those beautiful fiery berries for which the tree is famous. For if you closely examine the rowan berries, which are comparable in size to small peas, you'll notice instantly the distinct shape of a 5-pointed star on the bottom of every single one of them. The encircling flesh of the berry provides a distinctive ring around the star. It is this striking visual effect that many historians and folklorists believe is the origin of the pentagram symbol. How enchanting. In past times, the Druids used the berries, bark, and sap of the tree for the dyeing of their gowns, and in the tanning process for preserving animal hides. The ingestion of the bark and sap is certainly not recommended, as both are known to be toxic. The berries, though, although rumored to have medicinal and healing properties, if eaten unprepared, can cause intestinal distress to both animals and people. But they're not entirely inedible, as still today they are distilled into wine, baked into pies, and crafted into jams and jellies to be served with wild game. Now, if you happen to live a, let us say, unique kind of life and are in need of extra measures to keep your lifestyle protected and those around you in order, there's a rare variety of Rowan tree to be prized above all others. These trees are known to be tenacious in their determination to germinate. They boldly take hold and thrive in places where common trees would have no prospect of surviving at all. When you discover a rowan tree sprouting defiantly from a cliff face, or growing from inside a boulder that's been split, or flourishing happily in the bough or crux of another living tree, this is known as a flying rowan, and it is said to possess the most powerful forces of all. This is the rowan infused with the kind of potent magic I need. You'll need. So, try and get one of those. The rowan tree has also within its deep dark forest of folklore the age-old rumor that it was used for 2 additional and notably fateful happenings that would influence the lives of man in general and the faithful in particular. The rowan tree was said to provide the wood for the cross of the Christian crucifixion, the very beams upon which Christ was made to suffer torturous pain and ridicule until his death. And in exceptional, but not perhaps equal measure, the rowan tree was said to be the tree from which Satan hung his mother. Kids, eh? This concludes our tale this evening, my lovelies. Please do stop by the information desk on your way out of the library, as there are many fascinating rowan tree images for you to enjoy. Some you can see are fine examples of the tree and how its wood is used to provide that little bit of luck and protection for its owners, a consideration that some of you may be in desperate need of, whether you realize it or not. Good night.
A fine story tonight, madam. Shall I read a bit more from the survey?
Is there any good news in it?
11% say they always detect the scent of cemetery roses whilst visiting.
We'll take that as a compliment. What else have you got?
Well, 3% felt as though something terrifying was following them home.
Good.
And 2% report that they won't be returning to the Midnight Library. Well, they didn't actually report it, but they won't be returning.
Perfect.
The Midnight Library is co-produced by Tess Feifel and Astonishing Legends Productions and is edited by Sarah Voorhees-Wendell with music and sound design by Ryan McCullough. Special thanks to Miranda Merrick and Mr. Darling. No part of the show may be reproduced in any manner without express written consent. Copyright Astonishing Legends, all rights reserved.